Greetings and welcome to the Reparenting Daily podcast. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into reparenting, exploring all of the tools and resources that you'll need to help you along your journey. This podcast is divided into 3 sections. The first is a daily reading. The second is a discussion of the reading followed by suggested journal prompts. And the last section is a peaceful meditation for closing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whenever and wherever you're joining us today. I'm so glad that you're here as we continue on this journey of self-expansion and growth. If this is your first time, welcome. Before we dive in, a quick reminder. Like, share, and subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Your support here helps spread the word and grow this community of self-reparenting. Now for a few updates. First, I'm excited to introduce our Patreon community, where for a small monthly fee, you can join us for 3 weekly reparenting support meetings. Sundays, we have a guided meditation for emotional grounding. On Tuesdays, we have a book club discussion for deeper discussions and growth. And on Thursdays, we have open topic conversations for real-time support on any topics that may come up. You can find all of the details about what's included in this community by going to the Reparenting Daily website and checking out the community tab. In addition, we now have a WhatsApp support group, a global network of fellow travelers available anytime you need encouragement, guidance, or simple connection. This is just one of the many ways we're building a strong, supportive space for your reparenting journey. The next announcement is that I've just released my first few books. The first is the Reparenting Daily Journal, a structured 365-day guide to help you work through reparenting day by day. Starting in 2025, each month focuses on a key theme with weekly sub-themes. The Reparenting Daily podcast episodes align with the journal, making it an interactive and immersive experience to help you stay focused and ensure real progress this year. Now for the next announcement, I'm thrilled to introduce Fairy Tales for Reparenting Daily, a collection of 3 books inspired by Jungian analysis, mythology, philosophy, psychology, and most importantly, the work of Marie-Louise von Franz. These short, simple stories are designed to help you reconnect with your inner child and experience healing through storytelling. What makes these books unique? Well, at the end of each story, there's a deep dive analysis exploring its themes, explored by journal prompts to help you reflect on how these lessons relate to your personal journey. All of these books are now available on Amazon, so go ahead and take a look and support this project. Reparenting is a journey of growth, iterative change, and continuous improvement. Much like nurturing the bonsai tree, it requires patience, care, consistency, and attention. Thanks for being here and supporting this work, and for committing on your journey of self-expansion. Now, without further ado, let's dive into today's practice. Welcome back. Today's reading is from Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. Just as a reminder, we are in May, and the theme for this month is emotional regulation. We're in week 4. This is the first day of week 4. And the theme of this week is practicing emotional balance. And this runs from May 22nd until the 31st. Today we're going to be reading a part of the appendix. So it's called Appendix B, the hallmarks of the emotional mind, which is in some ways the opposite of this week's theme, which is practicing emotional balance. So we're coming back to look at the emotional mind to help us develop a better understanding and a quicker response time to be able to identify when we're in the emotional mind. So then we can take the steps necessary to shift out of that into a more adult and centered self. So without further ado, the hallmarks of the emotional mind. Only in recent years has there emerged a significant scientific model for the emotional minds that explains how so much of what we do can be emotionally driven. How we can be so reasonable at one moment and so irrational in the next, and the sense in which emotions have their own reasons and their own logic. Perhaps the 2 best assessments of the emotional mind are offered independently by Paul Ekman, the head of Human Interaction Laboratory at the University of California, San Francisco, and by Seymour Epstein, a clinical psychologist at the University of Massachusetts. While Ekman and Epstein have each weighed different scientific evidence Together, they offer a basic list of the qualities that distinguish most emotions from the rest of mental life. A quick but sloppy response. The emotion mind is far quicker than the rational mind, springing into action without pausing even a moment to consider what it's doing. Its quickness precludes the deliberate, analytic, reflective reflection that is the hallmark of a thinking mind. In evolution, this quickness most likely revolved around that most basic decision, what to pay attention to, and one's vigilance while saying confronting another animal, making split second decisions like, do I eat this or does it eat me? Those organisms who had to pause too long to reflect or answer were unlikely to have many progeny to pass on to the slower acting genes. Actions that spring from the emotional mind carry a particularly strong sense of certainty, a byproduct of a streamlined, simplified way of looking at things that can absolutely be bewildering to the rational mind. When the dust settles, or even in the mind response, we find ourselves thinking, what did I do that for? A sign that the irrational mind is waking to the moment, but not with the rapidity of the emotional mind. Since the interval between what triggers an emotional and its eruption can be virtually instantaneous, the mechanism that appraises perception must be capable of great speed, even in brain times, which is reckoned thousands of a second. This appraisal of need needs to act to be automatic, so rapid that it never enters conscious awareness. This quick, dirty variety of emotional responses sweep us over virtually before we before we quit knowing, uh, before we quit know what is happening, before we quite know what is happening. Sorry for that stumble. This rapid mode of perception sacrifices accuracy for speed, relying on first impressions, reacting to overall picture or the most striking aspects. It takes things at once, as a whole, reacting without taking time for thoughtful analysis. Vivid elements can determine that impression, outweighing a careful evaluation of the details. The great advantage is that the emotional mind can read an emotional reality. He's angry with me, she's lying. This is making him sad in an instant, making the intuitive snap judgments that tell us who to beware of, who to trust, and who's in distress. The emotional mind is our radar of danger. If we, who are fair bearers in evolution, waited for the rational mind to make some of these judgments, we might not only be wrong, we might be dead. The drawback is that these impressions and intuitive judgments, because they are made in the snap of a finger, may be mistaken or misguided. Paul Ekman proposes that this quickness, in which emotions can overtake us before we are quite ready or quite aware they have started, is essential to being so highly adaptive. They mobilize us to respond to urgent events without wasting time pondering whether or how to respond. Using the system he developed for detecting emotions from subtle changes in facial expressions, Ekman can track microexpressions that flit across the face in less than half a second. Ekman and his collaborators have discovered that emotional expression begins to show up in facial musculature within a few thousandths of a second after after the event triggering the reaction. And the physiological changes typical of a given emotion, like shutting down blood flow and increasing heart rate, only take fractions of a second to begin. The swiftness is particularly true of intense emotions, like fear of a sudden threat. Ekman argues that, technically speaking, the heart of full emotion is very brief, lasting just seconds rather than minutes, hours, or days. His reasoning is that it would be maladaptive for an emotion to capture the brain and body for a long time, regardless of changing circumstances. If the emotion caused by a single event invariably continues to dominate us after it has passed, and regardless of what else has happened around us, then our feelings would be poor guys in action or to action. For emotions to last longer than the trigger must be sustained, in effect continually evoking this emotion. And when the loss of a loved one keeps us mourning, as when the lost one keeps us mourning. When feeling persists for hours, it is usually moods, a muted form. Moods set an effective tone, but they are not such strong shapers of how we perceive and act in the heat of full emotion, because it takes the rational mind a moment or two longer to register and respond than does the emotional mind. The first impulse in the emotional situation is the heart's, not the head's. There is also a second kind of emotional reaction, slower than the quick response, which simmers away and brews in the first thoughts. The second pathway of triggering emotion is more deliberate, and we are typically quite aware of the thoughts that lead to it. In this kind of emotional reaction, there is a more extended appraisal. Our thoughts, cognitions play the key role in determining what emotions will be aroused. Once we will make an appraisal, that taxi driver is cheating me, or this baby is adorable. A fitting emotional response follows. In the more slower sequence, more fully articulated thought precedes feeling. More complicated emotions like embarrassment or apprehension over an upcoming exam follow the slower route, taking seconds or minutes to unfold. These are emotions that follow from thoughts. Thank you, and that's the reading for today. Welcome back, guys. This reading from Emotional Intelligence highlights the rapid, often unconscious nature of emotional responses. The emotion mind often acts faster than the rational mind, stepping into action, often without analysis. While these quick responses can be life-saving, they are also prone to error. The text emphasizes that emotions have their own logic, but lack deliberate consideration of the rational mind. This is particularly relevant when practicing emotional balance, as it teaches us to recognize when we are acting from this reactive state, and then to focus on how we can train ourselves to pause and choose a more grounded and reflective response. This reading also introduces the idea of two emotional pathways, fast and slow. The fast path is instinctive and often involuntarily, while the slower path is more cognitive, involving deliberate thought and appraisal. Emotional balance involves becoming aware of both, recognizing when we are in a reactive state, and learning to engage with the slower pain through reflection and awareness. We can shift from being controlled by an emotion to unconsciously or consciously navigating it, an essential step in developing emotional maturity. As we go to the journal prompts, number 1, can you recall a recent moment where you reacted emotionally without thinking? What would it look like to pause and choose a different response next time? Number 2, what specific situations tend to trigger your emotional mind the most? And how might you prepare to meet them with more balance and awareness? And number 3, what thoughts or memories help you shift from emotional overwhelm into a more grounded, calm state? How can you access those more intentionally in the future? That's it for today. As always, take care of yourself, and please do be well. Welcome back. Welcome back. Now, this is the third and final section of the daily podcast. This is your silent meditation. Please go ahead and find a space where you can be comfortable and undisturbed, where you can relax and spend some time with yourself for this 10-minute silent meditation. You can choose to be sitting, standing, lying down, or in whatever position makes you comfortable today. Take a moment to simply be with yourself. Focus on your breath and gently connect with each part of your body. If thoughts arise, don't let them overwhelm you. Just observe them without attachment. Imagine them as leaves drifting down atop a river, passing by without needing your engagement. Stay present, grounded, and open to this moment, no matter what time you are listening and practicing this meditation. Namaste.